Hello, this is Jonathan Moore with the Hometown Historian. I am here at Bomberger's Distillery, also known more recently as Mitcher's Distillery. This was, well, it is on the National Registry of Historic Places. The vast majority of the original distillery and brewery no longer exists here. This is private property, so there is no trespassing, which is why I'm filming on the side of the road. Over here, there used to be quite a large facility, and I believe the jug that was on top of the building is actually, they saved that and put that right over here. That used to be on top of the building. I'll try to put a picture up as well, just so you can see what the original facility was like. But there was a huge building over here, but it was quite a substantial building, a number of buildings. I guess it was the smallest continuously operating brewery in the United States. And eventually in 1989 it wound up shutting down. But there are a couple of buildings here yet. Most of them are from, I believe, the 1840s. The original brewery, it was called Bomberger's Distillery. I believe it was called something before that they were doing rye whiskey, but they started in like 1753. And none of these buildings, as far as I know, are from that time period, from the original facility. But some of the buildings here, I believe this building here and this one were some of the involved with the distilling. Those were here from 1840, but it is no longer in operation. 1989 it went out of operation. They basically were at bankruptcy. The name Mitcher's Brewery I believe is owned by a company down in Kentucky, but they actually do have one of the facilities is operating, I believe, out of Lidditz, which is about 8 miles away. It used to be a really cool facility to go by, because it had that industrial feel, and plus it had the age of being something from as far back as 1840. Unfortunately, everything fell into like terrible disrepair, and eventually they had to tear most of it down. But once again, this is private property, so it isn't somewhere where you can go and scramble on. I think they do probably some kind of events here, because they have a lot of chairs sitting up, and where that pad is, that's where one of the original facilities was. But it's pretty cool building. I remember going by here in the 90s and early 2000s, and none of that exists anymore. So with that, we will turn off. And but this is a old brewery. They made, I think, rye whiskey and things like that. We'll be heading over to Schaefferstown and Kleinfeldersville to do some more videos, but this is Mitcher's Brewery, originally known as Bomberger's Distillery. There are sites that you can look up more information on it. That don't have a ton of information that I have memorized, and so I just decided to quick stop by here to see what was all still here, if anything. I think they used to have over on this side too, there used to be some pretty substantial buildings as well, but all that stuff is gone. It might have been further down the road, but this is Mitcher's Brewery and Bomberger's Distillery. It is on the National Historic Registry, the Registry of Historic Places. So thanks everybody, we'll see you about town.
Alright, so I wanted to add on, there's only so much you could do there filming on site. I wanted to give the actual history of Bomberger's Distillery and Mitcher's Distillery. In 1753, John and Michael Schenk, they were Swiss Mennonite farmers, began distilling rye whiskey at the site. His son-in-law, Rudolf Meyer, acquired the distillery, and another relative, John Kratzner, ran the business from 1827 to 1860. In 1860, Abraham Bomberger, which eventually became Bomberger's Distillery, bought this, and he ran this till prohibitionary period, when he sold it to Ephraim Sechrist. It didn't operate again until 1934, and then he eventually sold it to Lewis Foreman in 1942, but Foreman wound up selling it shortly after he was drafted to serve in World War II. But he was able to repurchase it in 1950 and then created Mitcher's Distillery. He actually had the master distiller was Charles Everett Beam, who's from the Jim Beam fame of the Kentucky whiskey distillery. And they fashioned a premium old-fashioned pot still mash whiskey that they named Mitcher's Original Sour Mash Whiskey, after Foreman's sons Michael and Peter. 1951, Foreman distilled the first batch of Michter's, but by the time it had aged, it required 6 years. Recession prevented him from selling it. They sold the distillery to Penco Distilleries, where Foreman kept the formula and the aged whiskey, which he was able to sell over time through his liquor wholesaling business. In 1978, he was able to buy back the distillery, but by 1989, they had to file for bankruptcy and it closed down. But the name Michter's and Bomberger's are both used to this day. Michter's is actually ran down in Kentucky. That name is owned, so there is a whiskey out there with that name. There's also a whiskey with Bomberger's, which is local in Lancaster, and a few miles down the road in Lidditz, they actually make it. So thanks, everybody.